In the shadowy streets of Faisalabad, Pakistan, an elite joint task force prepares for the mission of a lifetime, a potential $10 million capture that could change everything. The target? A man who could be the key to preventing the unimaginable, another devastating terrorist attack on U.S. soil. Just 6 months after the horrors of 9/11, as they prepare to breach the safe house, their minds race. Is this the righteous mission they've been trained for, or will it haunt them as another misstep in the murky war on terror? On today's episode of the Infographics Show, we're looking at the story of the FBI's most extreme tactic to prevent a terror attack. Supervisory Special Agent Ali Soufan was one of the FBI's most respected interrogators, a man that some have said could have even prevented the 9/11 terrorist attacks if he'd been given the proper information by the CIA. Born in Lebanon in 1971, Ali escaped the chaos of a war-torn nation, determined to carve out his slice of the American dream. That dream would one day make him a fierce defender of the United States, something that would land him near the top of Al-Qaeda's assassination hit list. Initially hoping to go into academia, Ali graduated from the Mansfield University of Pennsylvania with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science in 1995. He would later get his master's in International Relations at Villanova University in 1997, graduating magna cum laude. However, Soufan's academic aspirations didn't last long. With his expertise in international relations and fluency in Arabic, Ali quickly caught the attention of the FBI. Recognizing his unique skills, they recruited him into their Middle Eastern counterterrorism operations, placing him within the National Security Division. The most insane part of this? He joined the Bureau after making a bet about it with his frat brothers of the Phi Kappa Theta, a bet that almost completely changed the course of modern American history. After Osama bin Laden declared the fatwa on the United States in 1998, Soufan, a non-denominational Muslim himself, wrote a scathing piece condemning Islamic fundamentalism. This caught the attention of the National Security Division head, John O'Neill, who would later describe young Soufan as a national treasure. Soufan was soon transferred from the I-40 squad, which investigated Hamas, to the I-49 squad, investigating Al-Qaeda. Soufan quickly proved to be a perfect fit for the intelligence community. Just 2 years after graduating, he was called to Jordan to assist in investigating the Jordan Millennium bombing plots, a critical stage in the war against terror. It was here that he made a discovery that in some ways would set the course of the rest of his life. He found a box of documents lying on the floor of a CIA station sent by the Jordanian government's intelligence officials. Inside, Soufan discovered critical maps marking the locations of the bomb sites. Discussing this discovery publicly later proved deeply embarrassing for the CIA, igniting a conflict between Soufan and the agency, a rift that would have grave consequences. In 2000, the call to action came again. An Al-Qaeda bombing attack on the USS Cole killed 17 off the coast of Yemen, escalating an already fragile political situation for U.S. interests. It was a huge embarrassment for the U.S. military. The guided missile destroyer was a billion-dollar investment with over 70 tons of armor, widely considered to be one of the most survivable ships in the fleet. And they'd been humiliated by 2 suicide bombers with plastic explosives in a fiberglass skiff. The Al-Qaeda operatives seemed unstoppable, executing their plan with precision. Yet, one critical piece went awry. The surviving member of the plot, Fahd al-Qussaw, failed his mission. He was supposed to film the attack on the USS Cole and circulate it as propaganda for the terrorist cell. But Qussaw overslept, missing his alarm and scrambling to get to the site. When the explosion went off, he was still en route in a taxi. Forced to go underground, he became a key target for U.S. intelligence. Capturing him was now crucial to not only solving this attack, but also to thwarting future plots. Ali Soufan, only 29 at the time, was called out to Yemen to assist on the case. He was one of only 8 FBI agents who spoke Arabic in the entire United States, and the only one in the New York branch. His skills would be invaluable in helping the U.S. save face after the tragedy with the USS Cole. Upon arrival, Soufan and the FBI contingent were held at gunpoint by a group of Yemeni Special Forces troops. Thankfully, Soufan, a natural negotiator, kept his cool and smoothed over the situation by offering them all bottled American water. In a country with Yemen's hot climate, this peace offering patched over the cultural divide. But this would be nothing compared to the horrors still to come. When they investigated the ruins of the USS Cole, they saw a nightmare. The ship had been gutted, with remnants of the sailors who had been killed still hanging from the broken walls. The bombers made a critical misstep, abandoning their truck near the attack site. This slip led Soufan and his team to their rented home and a trove of evidence. Inside, they found DNA evidence from when the attackers had ritualistically shaved their heads. As Soufan dug deeper into who had rented the property, one name stood out, a familiar alias tied to a known al-Qaeda operative. The connection was officially drawn. Soufan was locking horns with al-Qaeda once again. But that wasn't the only old adversary he faced while in Yemen. Several suspects were arrested by the Yemeni authorities and questioned about their role in the plot. A name kept coming up, Khalid, a one-legged al-Qaeda lieutenant based in Afghanistan who'd had some role in orchestrating the USS Cole attack. Much like the coordinated al-Qaeda Millennium attacks, this seemed like it could be one small piece in a much larger plot. The FBI agents just needed to keep tugging at the threads until the whole thing unraveled. As luck would have it, the Yemeni authorities also captured al-Qusaw not long after the attack. Using his gift of gab yet again, Soufan was able to secure an interview for the FBI with the man himself in hopes of understanding the wider scope of al-Qaeda's plans. At this point, it's extremely important to understand what makes Soufan such an effective interrogator. He practices a method known as rapport-based interrogation, where the interrogator forms a positive relationship with the subject they're interviewing. The aim is to get them into a comfortable place where they'll share information. Soufan's deep cultural knowledge was also an asset in his style of interrogation. Friends and colleagues described him as a deeply spiritual man who regularly studied the Quran at night. He was actually such a scholar of the text that he was able to de-radicalize some of the subjects in interviews by convincing them that they'd misunderstood the book's teachings. With al-Qusaw, he faced an uphill battle. The local authorities were clearly sympathetic with him. One member of law enforcement even entered the room and kissed him on both cheeks. But Soufan wasn't daunted. He kept working at al-Qusaw until the two of them built a rapport. He started opening up, which was when a fascinating tidbit of information came out. Al-Qusaw had sent tens of thousands of dollars to Khalid, the same one-legged operative that came up in the previous interviews. But there was something wrong about this to Soufan. Money flows downstream in an operation like this, not up. Why would a drone like al-Qusaw be sending money to a power player like Khalid, and not the other way around? Al-Qusaw's excuse that the money was meant for Khalid to buy a new leg was not only implausible, it was downright ludicrous. It seemed much more like Soufan's greatest fears were being realized. They were looking at only one small corner of a far larger picture. Soufan didn't know this yet, but they were looking at the first whispers of the deadliest terror attack that had ever unfolded on U.S. soil. But if Soufan was ever to find this out, he needed more information, and that would involve interdepartmental cooperation from the CIA, an agency he already had a fractious relationship with. Not only had he embarrassed them with the incident in Jordan, but they tried to headhunt him several times, asking him to come over to the dark side. According to those in the know, Soufan just laughed in response. Cooperation between the FBI and the CIA has been common throughout the history of the two organizations. Historically, the CIA has been protective of its intelligence, voicing concerns that releasing the intelligence to the FBI might compromise its international partners. So when Soufan approached them about Khalid and his international connections, he was stonewalled and given nothing. In reality, the CIA had quite extensive intelligence on Khalid. Through a phone-tapping operation targeting jihadist Ahmed al-Hara, they uncovered a detailed picture of al-Qaeda's sprawling global network. Their surveillance even revealed the existence of an emerging cell within the United States, one that included two men who would later play pivotal roles as 9/11 hijackers. It's possible the CIA was conducting a separate operation using overlapping intelligence. They may have withheld information from the FBI, fearing that sharing it could compromise their own efforts. If the information was given to Soufan and the FBI, the agency in charge of all of the United States' domestic federal law enforcement, they could have put the relevant people on terrorist watch list. Soufan would later say that if the information had been shared when he requested it, they might have pieced together enough intelligence to prevent the 9/11 World Trade Center attacks entirely. It wasn't long before Soufan and his colleagues were forced out of the country. The agents were all stationed at the Aden Hotel with a contingent of Marines to guard them, but that didn't stop gunshots going off every night. Agents were forced to sleep fully clothed with their service weapons laying next to them if the situation ever deteriorated. And in one particular frightening case, when Soufan and John O'Neill were in a helicopter together, someone targeted them with a guided missile. The Yemeni government asked Soufan, O'Neill, and the other FBI delegation to leave, fearing their presence in the country was causing international strain on Yemen-US relations. With the potentially vital connection missed as a result of the CIA's tight lips, the FBI team returned to the United States, and everything got worse. Despite being the reason for Ali Soufan's increasingly illustrious FBI career, O'Neill's own career was about to take a hit. A briefcase under his possession, filled with important classified documents, was stolen. It was soon retrieved, and while it didn't show any evidence of the files being accessed, it was too much of a liability for him to continue heading the FBI National Security Division. He left the FBI not long after and got a new job as the head of security at the World Trade Center. Soufan and the rest of the FBI unknowingly sleepwalked towards September 11, 2001. He was out of the country when the news broke and immediately tried to call O'Neill. He didn't pick up. John O'Neill, the mentor that had given Soufan his start at the Bureau, was just one more of the thousands of lives lost on that terrible day. For Soufan, the memory of that terrible day would remain a weight he carried for years to come. A day that, if the CIA had been more forthcoming, he and many others believe he could have prevented. As the war on terror ramped up in the chaos of a post-9/11 world, Soufan's particular set of skills were even more useful in trying to make sense of what had happened. In fact, he was involved in multiple incredibly important counter-terrorist operations for the FBI over the next few years. He led the intensive 5-day interview of Abu Jandal, one of bin Laden's trusted bodyguards, also known as the Father of Death. Over the course of the interview, he gave up a number of names of his fellow militants. He also broke Mohammed al-Qahtani, the would-be 20th hijacker of the 9/11 attacks. Al-Qahtani's role in the plot was thwarted when he was denied entry into the U.S., raising suspicions that he was attempting to immigrate illegally. From this interview, Soufan would obtain the testimony needed to convict Ali Saleh Kala al-Mari of terrorism charges in Chicago. In 2005, Soufan's smooth-talking skills and coolness under pressure led to him taking part in a sting operation in Florida to catch out Dr. Rafiq Abdus-Sabir. Sabir confessed to his willingness to help treat wounded al-Qaeda insurgents, for which he would be convicted and receive a 25-year prison sentence in 2007. He did the same for another purported bin Laden bodyguard and driver, Salim Hamdan, which was crucial in convicting him before a military tribunal. He also extracted confessions from Ali al-Balul, a propagandist for al-Qaeda. But all of these were more like footnotes in the overall story of Ali Soufan and his involvement in the war on terror. He, the forces of al-Qaeda, and the CIA would clash one more time in the case of Abu Zubaydah. He was believed to be a key figure in al-Qaeda's operations, particularly at the Khaldan training camp. There, he was suspected of organizing new recruits and facilitating their missions by obtaining and forging crucial documents, including passports for outgoing insurgents. One source from the CIA later said they paid $10 million to local informants in order to find Zubaydah's location. If they could get him under lock and key, they might get the rungs of the ladder above him. This brings us back to the safe house in Faisalabad, Pakistan, 6 months after 9/11. The Joint Task Force of the FBI and CIA agents stood ready, Kalashnikovs loaded, awaiting the signal to enter the building. Their mission was to capture their first high-value detainee. When the agents stormed the safe house, chaos erupted. Abu Zubaydah was shot multiple times, taking bullets to his stomach, thigh, and testicle. Bloodied and barely conscious, he was dragged into the back of a pickup truck alongside several other prisoners. It wasn't until then that one of the agents realized they had captured their primary target. Gravely injured, he was rushed to a local Pakistani hospital. After all, you can't interrogate a dead man. But the wounds were too severe for an attending doctor to treat. The CIA needed to import a doctor from Johns Hopkins just to stabilize Zubaydah enough to get him out of the country. And that's exactly what they did, transporting him from Pakistan to an off-the-books black site based in Thailand. Meanwhile, back in the United States, an important decision was being made. Several high-profile members of the government, including Vice President Dick Cheney, CIA Director George Tenet, and Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, were all signing off on a radical new series of CIA methodologies. They called it Enhanced Interrogation, and Abu Zubaydah was going to be the guinea pig. But the CIA weren't the only party involved here. This was where Special Agent Ali Soufan once again entered the scene. The FBI sent him and several other agents to Thailand to interrogate Zubaydah while he continued to recover from his injuries. There, according to Soufan's own testimony, his rapport-based investigative technique bore fruit. After establishing a good relationship with Zubaydah, Soufan began questioning him about the members of al-Qaeda, particularly ones that might have been involved with the 9/11 attack. During this interview, Soufan found out about Jose Padilla, an American who planned to create and detonate a dirty bomb on American soil. But an even more fascinating discovery came about by complete accident. While searching through photos to show to Zubaydah, Soufan accidentally showed him a photo of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, thought to have been a relatively minor player of little interest to the FBI's investigations. They couldn't have been more wrong. Zubaydah revealed that Mohammed was actually the architect of 9/11 and one of Osama bin Laden's most trusted allies. It was arguably the biggest leap in intelligence they'd had since the attacks happened. Then the CIA interrogators started putting their newly approved enhanced interrogation techniques to use, and according to Soufan, everything collapsed at this point. They tortured the already very injured Zubaydah in a variety of horrific ways, from near constant waterboarding to stripping him naked to sleep deprivation to blasting loud music in his ears at all hours. They even put him in a box similar to a dog cage, small enough that it contorted his body into uncomfortable shapes, causing agonizing muscle pain. Soufan was incensed by the treatment that Zubaydah was receiving and protested. Soon enough, this interdepartmental spat was taken out of Soufan's hands. His boss, FBI Director Robert Mueller, called him back to the States. Zubaydah remained in the hands of the CIA, who continued their enhanced interrogation techniques. But did any of it actually work? According to sources, no. The subject gave out a huge number of names while being tortured just to get the pain to stop. Many have said that despite all this, none of the information gained led to a single terror plot being foiled. In the end, it accomplished little more than wasting government resources on wild goose chases, just as Soufan had warned. Unsurprisingly, this didn't make him popular with CIA operatives. Later in 2002, some months after the incident with Abu Zubaydah, Soufan flew out to Afghanistan to interview another 2 high-profile al-Qaeda suspects. There, he was stonewalled yet again, likely as retaliation for his protests around the Zubaydah interrogation. This wouldn't be the last time the CIA punished him for speaking up. In 2011, Soufan tried to publish a book about his experiences with CIA enhanced interrogation techniques. The agency used their influence to demand several considerable redactions to parts of the book that they considered uncharitable or compromising of national security. The truth is, they just didn't want it to make them look bad. But that still wouldn't keep Soufan down. He continued to testify publicly, both about the injustice and ineffectiveness of the techniques he saw employed, including a testimony before the U.S. Senate Committee on the Judiciary. In 2009, he even published an op-ed in the New York Times titled, "My Tortured Decision." Even though Soufan was decried and censored at the time for going against the CIA, history was eventually on his side. The general consensus is now that enhanced interrogation techniques are neither ethical nor effective in extracting accurate information from subjects. The rapport-based method of traditional interrogation that Ali Soufan had championed over his entire career as an FBI special agent was vindicated as the right way to go. In 2020, Soufan was able to release a full edition of his book exposing the mistakes, lies, and crimes of the CIA that he witnessed firsthand, titled The Black Banners, Declassified: How Torture Derailed the War on Terror After 9/11. When questioned on the victory of finally getting the story out to the public in its full and uncensored form, he said, "If you fight for the truth hard enough, eventually you will win." What's your take on Ali Soufan's interrogation style versus harsher CIA tactics? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Now check out FBI negotiation techniques you can use every day, or watch this instead.